Good morning, gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you today from my living room. I'm going to talk to you about the latest position in Ukraine. Now, you see, there are 2 points we must be very clear as what's happening in Ukraine. Firstly, Ukraine instigated the conflict. That's the first thing. Secondly, the Russians didn't accept and they attacked Ukraine. They had a 2-point plan, the Russians. They felt they faced the existentialist crisis from Ukraine in case Ukraine had become a member of NATO. And then there are two other countries here in NATO, that is the United Kingdom and France, who are no longer world powers, no longer global powers, and they are looking for only one thing, and that is how they can reassert their supremacy of the world, and they felt that they could only do it in case they got Russia on the racks. So the war started, and it's been continuing for over 3 years. The results are not very happy, but the fact remains that the Russians have taken about 22% of Ukrainian territory. And in case Biden had continued as president, the war would have continued. Because Biden was a dyed-in-wool imperialist, and he wanted to destroy Russia also. He didn't understand anything that he had driven the Russians with the arm of the Chinese, and the danger was China. I didn't understand that. Anyway, he got defeated. He's now in the calaboose, gone home, and we have Donald Trump as president. Donald Trump is very clear that the war must be stopped. That is the point. And he's right. There have been 1 million casualties in the Ukrainian war. The Russians have suffered, so have the Ukrainians. But the Ukrainians are worse off. The entire country is devastated, and Donald Trump is looking for peace. But the British and the French still have got grandiose notions of their old imperialist grandeur, but that grandeur they have forgotten that doesn't exist now. They're just lame ducks riding on the American horse, and they were thinking they'll keep on doing that and winning the battles. So, these two men, that is the French president and the British Prime Minister, Stemmer, and the French president, both of them made visits to Donald Trump in Washington. They caught his feet, they tried everything, every stunt, and even the British Prime Minister went and said he's going to put boots on the ground and will ensure, what will he ensure? He will ensure that Russia is kept occupied and Ukraine gets a say in the world, which is a lot of BS, and that's what Donald Trump told these people. And Donald Trump tries direct negotiations with the Russians, and the result, as you can see now, Russia is agreeable to a ceasefire, but the British and the French are still instigating, and even they have been losing so much material. $1 trillion NATO has spent on Ukraine, and the result is a big, big zero. So what's going to happen next? Next is, if Donald Trump has his way, which he will ultimately, there will be a ceasefire in Ukraine, and the net result is going to be that the Russians will get the territory which they have occupied. That is number one. Number two, NATO will not be extended to Ukraine. And even Trump has said, there was no need to extend NATO to countries like the Baltic Republic, Estonia, Latvia, and all that. It was a lot of, weird thinking of the British and the French. And at that time of Joe Biden and Obama, because actually the man controlling Biden was Obama, and he was sitting in the back and pulling the strings, But now he's become a non-entity. He doesn't know what to do. All he's running around is to divorce his wife and look around for another woman. It's a very sad thing, but that's precisely what's happening. Now, as we come to the Ukraine war again, there are not men available with Ukraine. They're putting the women into battle. And Ukrainians have 10 million refugees spread into Europe. They don't want to go back to Ukraine. because they're going to be conscripted and made to fight. And the one man actually who deserves to be made war criminal is Zelensky. I feel very sad when I have to talk something like this, but Zelensky is the man who needs to be chastised. In fact, if you ask me, he is the war criminal in the entire thing. I used to see him moving around stage like he's a big cock or something like that, of the hen, and he's thinking he's a great power and he's got something and he's just begging the Americans. He went twice to Washington, begged for military help because the Ukrainians can't fight on their own. They don't have the guts. At the same time, I could never understand what was his game of trying to join the EU as well as NATO. What was his aim? His aim was basically to destroy Russia. He's got some hatred against the Russians. Well, personal hatreds have no relevance in the present modern age, but he believes in it. And probably he's got some hangover of some earlier atrocities the Russians had committed in Ukraine. Well, the Russians didn't do it in Ukraine, they did it everywhere. But that's the Russian character, so you've got to live with it. And you can't bring out the old theories that Stalin introduced famine, he did that thing. I mean, it's all over. You've got to look for peace. And that is the greatness of Donald Trump, that he's looking for peace. And now the Russians are really instigating the conflict further, stoking the flames, and they are advancing every day into Ukraine more and more. And I think the only way you really going to have peace there is in case Mr. Zelensky is sent home. And Zelensky is told, well, friend, enough is enough, you go home. I will just stop for a moment and I'll once more make a request to all my friends. Please subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and come back again and again and listen to me. Well, I give you the news in my way, and not the news the way you want to see it or hear it, because you can hear it on the radio, you can hear it on the BBC or any other channel. I'm going to give you an interpretation. The interpretation is the world is sitting on the brink of World War III thanks to two countries, that is the United Kingdom and France. And sadly, both these countries just don't know what the hell is going on. And they might well be reminded of Nikita Khrushchev's statement in 1961, in which he said I required just 5 nuclear hydrogen bombs to wipe England off the world map. England is a small country, tiny country, puri country, which is not even equivalent to an Indian state or a Chinese state. And it's trying to think that it's like the frog and going to blow itself into a big stomach. This is what the French are also thinking. They lost empire years back. They've been thrown out of Africa. Nobody wants the French there now. So we're seeing that the French and the British living on past glory, wanting that glory back, and they thought they can do it by destroying Russia. They don't realize that the greater danger is China. But then Europe is not concerned about what the Americans think or the world thinks. They think about themselves only. And Indian foreign minister very clearly said that Europe sees everything through their eyes. They don't see eyes to the world. And that is the problem. So, gentlemen, it's a very, very precarious situation as it is. But I'm sure peace is going to come. And Zelensky will have to go. Mark my words today, Zelensky will have to go. And it will not be wrong before Mr. Zelensky is put behind the calaboose and sent home. And he's in any case thinking he's like Hitler, moving around and showing that he's a warrior by coming in battle fatigues in conferences and all that. Is just the impression he's trying to create that he's a great fighter or something like that. It's so very silly, really. And it makes me laugh at what Mr. Zelensky is trying to do. And one should forget his name featured in the Panama Papers and he's stacked away millions of dollars. And his family is pretty well off because of that. But he's continuing to fight, thinking he's going to win the battle, throw the Russians out. It's not going to be easy, but the Russians have also suffered badly. There's no doubt about it. They're looking for peace. And the Russians have now requested that flights between between the United States and Russia be restored. And the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov has made it very clear that he doesn't want any European power at the peace conference which is going to take place shortly. and it will be between America and Russia. They will decide. And Donald Trump is a very clever man. If he can stop the war, have peace in Ukraine, and then there is a good chance he could break the monolith Russian-Chinese alliance. And that is important for the world, because this monolith alliance would be much more powerful than the pact of steel between Hitler, Tojo, and Mussolini. Gentlemen, goodbye. God bless. Take care and come back for more. Bye-bye.